Kedves kilencedikesek, az Árpád-ház dolgozat után a vegyesházi királyaink jönnek, tehát a középkori magyar állam most már az Árpád-házi királyok után más uralkodó családoknak a királyai által lesz vezetve, és az első ilyen nagyon fontos uralkodó, akit meg fogunk beszélni, az Károly Róbert lesz. Károly Róberttel kapcsolatban ezt a prezi diasort készítettem. Uralkodását alapvetően úgy fogjuk megtárgyalni, hogy két témába fogjuk venni. Először beszélek nektek arról a szörnyű időszakról, nehéz időszakról, amely 4. Béla halála után és az Árpád-ház kihalása után kialakult, a kiskirályok kora, úgynevezett oligarchák kora. Beszélünk magáról, Károly Róbertről, és hogy hogyan erősíti meg a hatalmát, és aztán a kiváló gazdasági reformjairól és a külpolitikájáról is kell beszélnünk, ezért két részre fogom osztani a videót. Az első rész az első résszel, és a második résszel fog foglalkozni. So let's start with Charles Robert. First of all, I would like to talk about the situation of the age of oligarchs, how it happened. Well, we are at the end of 13th century, and the mighty barons got huge power. I told you that Béla IV started the granting policy again with the second state founding, and after his death, the following kings lost royal power. More and more barons got more and more huge territory and huge power. They owned whole parts of the country, so the royal power, the power of the king, became weaker and weaker. The last king of the Árpád dynasty was Andrew III, who died in 1301. So this date is important because this is when the Árpád dynasty died out, but only on a male side. So there was no male heir, and this is how they died out on a male side. So there were some others, daughters and sisters, who had sons, but Andrew didn't have a son. And this is when these mighty barons, also called oligarchs or petty kings, kiskirályok, this is their time. In this period, as you see, the whole country is governed by these huge families. I would like you to remember Csák Máté in the north. This period, he was the strongest of all. There was the Aba family, Kán László, who had the power over whole Transylvania, the eastern part. There is another Csák family in the south. As you see, Kőszegiek, Babonicsok, Frangepánok. So these huge baron families didn't let the king have strong power. And there was no king. Andrew III died. So mighty barons owned the whole part of the country. Let's talk about their rule, their reign. Csák Máté was the strongest, as I told you, in the north, in the upper lands. They fought each other, so they were not in good terms with each other. These huge barons had their own armies. They traded. They minted money. They had their own money. And at that time, of course, they robbed out traders. The economy collapsed. There was no trade in the country, and they forced the nobles into marriages. So these huge barons had their huge territories, and you can imagine how many little landowners, nobles, were on this territory. They were forced into marriages with, for example, Csák Máté's family. And this is how, just like the mafia in Italy, they were forced into these marriages, and by this, the huge baron, for example, Csák Máté, could dominate the whole territory and the nobles. This is what we call familiarity. So these huge baron families forced nobles, smaller landowners, into marriages. Unfortunately, all social layers were disappointed. Just remember, those who lived from trade, merchants, or people in the cities, towns, they didn't like this kind of leadership. The nobles who were forced into marriages, they didn't like this idea. And think about the serfs on the fields. They were extra taxed. So these petty kings, these little leaders, these oligarchs were very harmful for the country. And there was no king. So, who will be the king? Our next question is here. Of course, on the female side of the Arpads, there are pretenders. Actually, there were three of them in the beginning of the 13th century, 14th century. In 1301, there were three of them coming for the throne. But I would like you to remember only one who became a strong king, and that was Charles Robert. He came from Naples, from the Anjou dynasty, so he came from Italy. And the Pope supported him. That was an important support because when he arrived in Hungary, he had the Pope in his back and he allied with some oligarchs in the south. Of course, he came from the Adriatic Sea, from the territory of Croatia, and he allied with those barons there and started the consolidation of power. So he started fighting for the crown. I can tell you that he was crowned 3 times. He was crowned in 1301. That was not official because, of course, he was not supported by everyone. He was crowned in 1308. This is what I would like you to remember. But if you want to remember this 1310, it's also a good number. This is when he was crowned finally with the Holy Crown. But in 1308, well, most of the power was already in his hands. So that's why we can say that this is a good number. And he ended his reign in 1342. It's really important. So he started fighting for power. How? Started to defeat the oligarchs. Sometimes he made agreements with them, sometimes they were fighting. And all social layers, because they were disappointed, helped him. So actually, he fought, for example, in 1312 at the Rosgony battle against the Abba family in the north. This is when the Kosha citizens also took their weapons and they started to fight with Charles Robert against the Abbas. So all social layers participated. And he won the fights, except one. Chakmate had so big army that he couldn't be defeated by Charles Robert. So in 1321, Chakmate died, and only then Charles Robert could get the territory. So, as you see, in this picture, everything is there. Look at that. Charles came from the south, and he allied with the Frangipans, the Babonich, and others, and the Subich. So this was his alliance, Károly támogató tartományok in the south, and he went to Esztergom. He was crowned 1301. But then he was also crowned in 1308, and then in 1310. As you see, the Pope also sent help to Charles to get the power. And then these two people, Przemysl Vencel and Bajor Otto, both of them wanted the Hungarian throne, but unfortunately they were not strong enough. There were no supporters behind them, so they had to leave the country. This is why I told you don't have to remember these two. But Charles got some support, and finally he was crowned in 1310, as you see in Székesfehérvár, as my official. There are fights, of course. He fought against Borsa Kopasz, 1316, Kán László, 1315, Csák Ugrin, 1311. This is what I told you. Rozgonyi Csata, Battle of Rozgon, 1312. It's quite interesting. It was about the Aba family, Aba Avade. This is where the Kassa citizens helped him. And as you see, Csák Máté was not defeated. He had to die. Charles had to wait until he died. So in 1321, we can say that he got the whole territory of the country. So that's what he did. Well, the king consolidated power. He started a granting policy again, granted lands to loyal families, mostly nobles, so no barons. He made some noble families barons, so some families had a great development during this period. He created the honor system, magyarul honorrendszer. He gave positions to people and land with the position. So they got some kind of benefit from this position. This position was like the chamber reformer Nekcsei Demeter. He was the chief treasurer, and he also got lands. It's like that. Király, position, palatine, ban, chief treasurer, voivod. They had some lands for themselves because they were wealthy people, but look at that. The king gave land, and of course with this a lot of income together with the position. Ezt nevezzük honorrendszernek, tehát adományozott nekik rendes földet, de ezen kívül a pozícióhoz járó, a tisztséggel járó várakat és birtokokat is kapott az illető. And this made a real loyal layer of people who supported Charles Robert. Itt az első feladatnak a vége, vagy az első résznek a vége, tehát most már a hatalmunk megszilárdult, a kiskirályokat eltüntettük, és akkor innen folytatjuk a gazdasági reformokkal, amiért igazán büszkék lehetünk Károly Róbertre.